Welcome to the Alchemists Inkwell podcast,
your spiritual podcast for grounded people.
I'm Emily.
And I'm KristaLyn. And today we have an amazing guest. Please introduce yourself. We are so excited to have you here.
Oh, thank you. I'm Friday. I am the owner and head tea witch at Friday Afternoon Tea, a little company based in Seattle. And I make tea for nerds is kind of what I'm known for.
Oh, that's the best kind of tea, if you ask me. Yeah. I mean, we're all nerds here, so it's fantastic. So we've seen you on TikTok. We've seen all the incredible things that you can do with your unique talents, both with crafting teas and with also your synesthesia that you call it. First of all, like puns. I always say puns are one of my love languages, so I can totally appreciate that about you too. So thank you for such a perfect use of those words in combination. So
I love a portmanteau, and the tea industry is like 80% puns. So
yeah,
it all worked out.
Yeah.
Well, and you do fiction stuff too. There's like, you have a fiction book part of your website is also. So like you do all these things, which is super exciting.
Renaissance woman.
Yes. I don't really like not doing things. Especially if something interests me, it's a really quick trip to all-consuming obsession. And I want to know every single thing, which is kind of like a daunting goal, but, you know, like kind of going for it.
Yeah, you seem like you have the perfect energy for it. So that's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. So on that note, how did you begin, I guess, connecting your kind of synesthesia to the tea that you offer? And like, how does that tell us about that? Because I think that's such a world that people don't, both worlds are stuff that people don't know anything about. And then to come together, it's really interesting.
Yeah, well, it was kind of a complicated and long journey to an inevitable end point, really. My parents met in Star Trek Club in high school. I feel like that's something very important to know about me as a human being. I would literally not exist if not for Star Trek. And my grandmother was an herbalist. So I did actually grow up on a woo-woo, non-denominational pagan healing retreat in the redwoods of Central California. And my whole childhood was like growing our own food and wild sourcing our own medicine and nature walks. And, you know, here's what this plant does and why it's, you know, a gift to us and all of that. And so, you know, I grew up with plants are important and people are important and community is important and geekdom is everything. And then, you know, I grew up and I found myself working at an English tea room, my first job out of culinary school. And I had my first true tea because I was a hippie. I was raised on like dandelion root and mint and, you know, wild birch bark and things like that. And I had a golden monkey black tea, and it was like, you know, like the heavens opened up. I was like, what is this? And that was kind of that. I was 17 years old and I was like, well, that's what I'm doing with the rest of my life. So here we are. And I was like, I have to learn every single thing about tea, but it turns out you can't, because it's an agricultural product that's very sensitive, and from region to region, everything changes in the plant, and from cultivar to cultivar and culture to culture. And it's always changing because, you know, nature and biome shift and climate change and all of that. So you can't know everything about tea, which is fantastic. So I'll just never stop. And so I ended up starting my own tea company, partly because I hate authority and I do not do well in corporate settings, and partly because when I am interested in something, it is all that I want to do and all I want to think about. So I started my little tea company, and then a friend said, hey, you know, could you make some special tea for me for this Dark Alice in Wonderland tea party I'm having at the steampunk bookshop I own? Because these are the people I'm friends with. Yeah, this is a very normal thing to happen in my life. I was like, obviously, all those things already taste like stuff. So I just translate it using my, you know, professional chef experience and growing up in wine country and all that. It's like, oh, I understand flavor. Flavor is my first language. And I spent my whole youth learning how to translate, tasting all of the words that I think and feel and hear and read into human speech, not just because I can't just emit flavors from my mouth and people will understand them, as it turns out. Someday we'll meet like a space alien race that communicates like that, and I'll be like, oh, I'm home, you know, but for the time being, I've had to learn.
Everything needs to be scratch and sniff for you, but in a flavor.
There we go. That would be ideal. Or if I could
like, scratch it,
if I could just cook for people or just make tea for people and say, you know what I mean? You taste that, you know what I mean? And people would be like, ah, yes, I understand. That would be ideal. But, you know, I found myself making tea, and this friend said, hey, can you make this thing? And I said, well, those already obviously taste like things. And she was like, I don't know what you mean by that, but yeah, these are somehow weirdly right on. I don't know how you did that. I was like, well, I just read the book and tasted the stuff and made it into tea. No big deal. And in my mind, it was just reverse engineering a recipe that already existed. And to her, it was this like high art form. I had like tapped into something mystical here. I was like, oh, do you like not taste books? Oh, okay. So apparently that's not an everyone experience. And and then it really took off. That was very popular at that party. And I started to get all these requests. I started to work the Comic-Cons I'd been attending my entire life as a vendor now. And it just kind of exploded. And I found that I could finally communicate with people with so much more depth and in a way that feels more authentic and more accurate for me. If I can fill someone's mouth and nose with all of the things that I want to communicate, and they say, yes, I connect with this, I see how this relates to something that means something to me, then, you know, I feel like finally less other than through the medium of tea. So now I make fandom tea, and it's a great way for people to connect with each other, and I can connect with them through that. And it's been very fulfilling in such a bizarre space alien kind of way.
Oh my gosh. And I love that, you know, we talk about high vibe fiction, sharing a feeling of something that you just understand on a deep level. And you've definitely mastered that with tea and the sense and the almost full sensory experience of this message that you're trying to convey that can have words, as you've proven, but like doesn't need them because it transcends them. And that's so great. I love that.
Yeah, it's a gift to be able to kind of facilitate that translation. When I used to, you know, as I said, I was a professional chef for 15 years. And when I would rise up through the ranks at any given establishment high enough to be able to make the menus, I was in their secret coding. Oh my everyone's experience on creating menus that will evoke the kinds of emotional experience or sense memory that will put people in, you know, a lovely, happy kind of frame of mind. I've discovered that my real superpower is being able to facilitate an emotion or a memory or, you know, a thought or a feeling or a connection. And it's like, I could use this for evil if I wanted to, but like, why? You know, why?
Oh my gosh.
I could use it for awesome and cozy and happy and safe and, you know, seen and heard and all of that instead. So, yeah.
I hope it's not cliche. It reminds me of that scene in Ratatouille where he tries the ratatouille and he's just launched back into his nostalgia. And the fact that you're someone who can craft that so intentionally is really cool.
Yeah, that movie really resonated with me. I was like, finally, a movie about synesthesia and food. Here we go. This rat really understands my life.
On that note, just for everyone who's listening who might not be super familiar, can you describe a little bit about like what your synesthesia is like? Because I know there's various different types of synesthesia, so like that they have context.
Yeah, there are. And for those who don't know what synesthesia is to begin with, it's just a neurological cross-wiring of the senses. It's not even terribly uncommon. Everyone's born with it, but most people have what's called neural pruning as they grow up that kind of sorts all the senses into their relevant bins. And some of us, we have incomplete neural pruning. So we've got our senses just still connected with one another in really exciting and beautiful and sometimes gross kind of ways. And so for me, my dominant forms, I have a handful of them, but the one I use in my work the most is called lexical gustatory synesthesia, and that means flavor and language. So any words that pass through my mind, if I'm reading them, speaking them, hearing them, thinking them, whatever, they all have very complex and hyper specific flavor profiles and aromas and textures. I also have audio tactile synesthesia, which means that I feel all sounds as tactile, hyper-specific physical sensation. And I have what numeric spatial synesthesia. So numbers and simple arithmetic have geometric shape and locations in space. And mirror touch synesthesia, which means when I see something happen to another person, I feel it on my own body like it's happening to me. Yes, and then I also have I have one that I don't really talk about because it's a little bit spicy. I have like a sexual synesthesia that is, it's like really remarkable color and sound, like music during sex or like hypersensual moments, and sometimes just like becoming other objects. I can be having a sexual experience and then suddenly I just am a skateboard and I'm like, I don't know how to explain this. This sounds like nonsense. Or like am a wrinkled road map with like specific stains and stuff on it. Like that's real, and I don't know how to talk to people about that because it sounds so unrelatable to me when it comes out of my own mouth. So all of those things are true for me all the time, every day of my entire life.
Wow. What a way
So
to
much.
experience life.
It's a lot.
So much stimulus.
Yeah.
Much stimulus.
Yes.
It's amazing that you have found a way to make it part of your life in a really positive way, though, an incredibly high vibrational way too. To be like, I'm going to share these things. Like, I can taste Alice in Wonderland, so you should taste it too, which I think is just really, really neat. Also love that you focus on the nerdy stuff. Like, we're all in on that. What are like some of your favorite nerdy teas to make or taste, I guess? What are some of your favorite nerdy things to taste?
Or like, what's your favorite character to make a tea for, or your favorite book?
Yes. There's one that I sell that is like not very popular. I think people don't get it. And it is based on my very favorite book of all time, The Count of Monte Cristo. I love an overly elaborate and long burn game of revenge in fiction. I think I myself am such a huge Care Bear in real life. And like, I just like the idea of ever harming anyone else for any reason, like makes me feel sick to my stomach, but I love to read it. It's so satisfying. So The Count of Monte Cristo is my all-time favorite book. And I made a tea. It's called Sweet Vengeance.
Oh my goodness. So revenge tastes sweet. Got it.
It does. And spicy and a little bit smoky and a little bit bitter. It's very complex. It has smoky lapsang souchong, like pine smoked Chinese black tea. It has cacao nib. It has cardamom and black peppers, all these lovely spices and aromatics. It has a touch of pomegranate oil in there and just all these good, dark, deep, roasty things. And it's very satisfying to sink into, and it like bites a little bit, and it's also very smooth and like, I don't know, it's just so delightful. It's very complex. Gosh.
Well, there's so many connections there, like even the pomegranate being the fruit of the underworld in Greek lore and all of those things. You obviously have like an awareness of these things, but wow, the combinations, like even just hearing you talk about it and imagining the flavors that I have experienced, I think I might like the taste of revenge.
Yeah, I do like to play a lot with like little illusions. So I did, the pomegranate was 100% intentional. It fits the, you know, what's the accurate flavor, but there are 5 million flavors tied to any given story and the modes of expression and, you know, and who's narrating it and what translation I'm reading. And so I really do just get to pick and choose what things stand out the most to me and make them play together. So there is a level of artistic interpretation. And, you know, that story focuses so much on spice trade and the accumulation of wealth and using that as leverage to take down people who have wronged you. And so I really enjoyed the more spicy floral aromatic bits. I was like, okay, well, what spices would have been considered obscenely luxurious in this time period that already fit the correct profile? I'll play with those, sure, you know.
That's so cool.
I love the history component too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's always so many layers. Like people don't realize how many layers, because everything has to be correct. And also I play with my work so much. Like we've got our Moon Princess, a Sailor Moon inspired tea, and it does evolve over 6 infusions to line up with each of her evolutions, her magical girl evolutions, every outfit change, every weapons upgrade, every like personal self-worth and confidence upgrade that goes along with those level ups. Each infusion of that tea is designed to reflect those things in order. So you get so much more experience than people even realize on the surface. Or like our Mrs. Bennett's Nerve Tonic. It's one of our most popular teas. I am a big Jane Austen fan. I'd say Pride and Prejudice is maybe, it's like my third favorite Austen, but like it's so fun and it's so popular. And Mrs. Bennet is one of my favorites. She's ridiculous. She's so silly. And I just love how much she commits to the bit. Like her whole life is just so over the top. And I really appreciate that. And so her tea, it has all these classic English garden things going on. She's got her rose and her sage and her chamomile and her lemongrass, and it's all very stuffy. I feel like it tastes like how old upholstery looks, you know? And also, every ingredient in there is designed to help with anxiety and migraines.
So it literally is the tonic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's incredible. So then on that note, especially talking about like in a reading context, are there books that you have to stop reading because they taste horrible? Like not just that you don't like the plot line or like the story, but you're just like, this tastes disgusting. I can't keep going.
Like, yes, but I have to admit, I don't know if it's a masochism thing or what. I have a hard time putting a book down. It's like once I've started, I'm like, well, I'm in too deep. I gotta finish. So I recently read 2 books in a row that I hated, and I was so excited about both of them, and they just were not for me. And I made myself read the whole thing anyway. I just did it. I don't remember the last time I didn't finish a book. So
I admire that.
Fortunately, I do like most things. So it's very rarely an issue, but I had 2 in a row recently, and I was like, what is my life?
I get it. I was also in a fairly decent reading slump at the beginning of December, and I was like, I read everything. Why am I reading all this garbage? It's supposed to be good. And I pulled myself out of it, but still, it's hard when it's that together. So what other, like, is there other external inspirations other than just the nerdy stuff that you like pull the tea from? Do you have other spaces that you go to?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Yes. Emotions. So much. I feel like I feel things with a capital F, you know? I feel everything so loud all the time and so bright all the time. And I really celebrate that about myself. And I really love the full spectrum of emotion and memory. And my very favorite things to blend, honestly, are not even in nerd space. I love when people come to me for custom blends and they say, you know, I want a tea that tastes like my grandma's laugh and how it made me feel. I want a tea that tastes like this one secret hiding place that I had back home as a kid. You know, I want a tea that tastes like this song because whenever I hear it, it makes me feel such and such a way. Or I want a tea that matches my personal reading nook at home. That's a space I've created for myself. These are so personal and so intimate. And I don't know, I just find it so gratifying. And it feels like a real gift to get to engage with people's most intimate, precious feelings and memories and get to create a sensory touchstone so that they can call that up for themselves and sink into that space. And I think, you know, being invited into that myself and being invited to help other people invite themselves into that is just such a beautiful point of human like soul connection that I find myself in a unique position to fulfill for people. And that is my absolute favorite thing in the whole wide world. It's a really special level of connection.
That's beautiful.
I have to ask, because I know Krista's reading it right now. Have you read Under the Whispering Door at all? It's a book about a tea shop between worlds.
My TBR. A few million times, and it's on my TBR. I have it. It's in my Kindle. And that's so dead on because not only am I like an actual literal like tea witch in my everyday real life, I also am an aspiring death midwife, and I'm like very interested in death and death culture, and you know, it's something that I also explore a lot and feel very drawn to and very connected with. And so while I haven't read it, people keep being like, "Oh, tea and death, this is your brand." Yeah, correct.
In a quirky, really uplifting, very sweet way.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Very, very sweet. Yeah.
That is how I roll. So yes.
I was like, you're a book character. Are you aware of this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been told this just recently. And we did actually so we have at the tea shop a monthly like tea and book club. It's like a little subscription box, and we get a copy of the book from a local indie shop, whatever book we've chosen, and I pair 2 teas that fit, capital F again there. Yeah. And then we pick out some like indie made art pieces that really, match the book as well. And we get like a guest speaker to come on a Zoom, book club chat and, and talk about whatever realm it is that they have something to share that relates to the book. And we did last month in January, our book was House on the Cerulean Sea, which is by the same author, TJ Klune. And in that book club meeting, people kept saying, oh my gosh, I already read this other one by him and Friday. Do you know the true character in this book? Yeah. I'm excited to read it. I'm excited to read a book that is accidentally about me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's going to be perfect for you. I can't wait to see what kind of blends come from that. That's going to be amazing. I also would love to ask, I notice you're drinking tea now. What are you drinking today?
Today it is, where did I put it? It's called Happy Little Tea. It is a Bob Ross inspired blend.
Yes.
It's one that I made just because, I don't know, just because it was like an afternoon about 5. Sorry, my husband is slamming around. It was an afternoon like 5 years ago, and I was just at home in my shitty little apartment, and I was like, who's nice? Bob Ross. Like, honestly, sometimes it's just like that, and it's so cute. I'll show you on the camera since we're in chat.
Yeah.
But it's got Dragonwell green tea and Golden Monkey black tea and elderflowers, and it's so simple, but all the ingredients are very high end, and it's such a friendly one to brew because you can steep this one pretty much any way, and different really lovely and surprising notes come out. And even if you oversteep it, I feel like I should put oversteep in quotes because you can't really. It's just, it might be a little bit stronger on some notes and some other ones might be a little more subtle. It might be a little bit surprising to your mouth, but you can't really mess it up. There's always, no matter how you steep this one, something beautiful and surprising that comes out. So yeah, just a little Bob Ross tribute tea. It's just nice.
It's so funny listening to you talk about the tea and like the care and everything that you obviously feel for it. Definitely resonates with the Hugo character.
Excellent.
Yeah. I think that you're going to be able to appreciate how well Hugo understands tea in the book, because you clearly are a master. It's just poetic listening to you talk about tea. So I really love that. I've looked at a lot of your TikToks, and you have this really great way of describing things. Like when people will comment their names, and you'll tell them the experience of their names and the textures of it. And you get so passionate and heartfelt, and it's like lyrical listening to it. I think that's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. It has taken me my entire life to develop the language to be able to speak in a way that both other people can comprehend and expresses the depth of what I experience. My entire childhood was spent saying the wrong words because they taste like the correct words and I can't tell them apart, or just not liking the words that I was told were correct because they didn't taste like how the feeling that they were describing tastes, things like that. They don't match.
Yeah.
And that was really a struggle as a kid. I didn't understand why everyone said I talk so funny and why no one could understand me. And I just couldn't connect with people. And I didn't understand why other people's language choice to me felt so inaccurate. Because how can you choose a word that technically means what you're trying to say, but it doesn't taste correct for the emotion you're trying to convey. It doesn't taste correct for the context. It doesn't match the other words. You've got this cacophony of clashing flavors in a sentence, and you feel like that's okay to just say. You just leave it there. It feels sloppy and inaccurate. and as you know, as a little kid, that is a wild thing to say to a person, and it's hard to express. And so I spent so much time trying to figure out how to quote talk normal. And then eventually, gosh, I think I was well into my 20s before I decided I didn't want to talk the way that everyone else did. And I didn't want to speak in a way that felt clunky and inelegant when I could be choosing my words in a way that now that I've developed such an extensive vernacular and such an extensive palette myself, I can identify on the fly. I played every sentence to order is how I always express it, which I feel like, especially for restaurant people, is like, oh
That's,
yeah, sure. And so I can choose now. I've got this vast library, so I can say things in a way that other people will comprehend, and it feels like a relief to me to share, and feels beautiful and expresses what, the feelings that I want to express in the textures that I want and the flavors I want. But that really has taken decades to learn how to do. So yeah, and a lot of learning not to be so self-critical. That was such a key part of it for me. Was once I learned how to speak in a way that was accurate to myself, and also other people could understand me, getting out of my own way and saying, well, I don't have to speak with the same timbre and flow and word choice as everybody around me. And I can just say things the way I want to now, because I've built that library. And the more that I let go of trying to sound like everybody else, the more people started saying, oh, the way you speak is so lyrical, you're so eloquent, it's so, it's so vibrant, like your word choice is so lush. I'm like, oh, good. Well, that's nice, because that's how I prefer to speak. So I'm glad.
It definitely feels both compassionate and passionate when you speak. And I think that that's beautiful and authentic in such an original way. So I'm glad that you've come this far on your journey, and that this is where you're at now, and where you've come to settle for at least the moment, as everything evolves. But it's wonderful. I admire that.
Thank you. It certainly feels better. And definitely I was raised by, as I've said, hippies. My father's a nonviolent communications counselor and theoretical mathematician. So he's very into beauty and compassion and truth as just basic tenets of existence. And that vibes with me big time. So being raised in a household that is so about compassion and so about, like, let's facilitate a dialogue rather than fostering conflict. Let's put ourselves in other people's shoes and really consider things from all angles and be open-minded. And all of that, I think, was a really beneficial jumping off point for a small person who feels and tastes every single thing all the time, every day.
What an amazing background to be nourished in.
Right. And it's also like living life on hard mode. So it was like, oh, good. The universe like gave you like a cradle to be like, that's a safe place to go with this hard mode that you are on, which is beautiful that you've made the most of. Question. So if let's say you like watch an anime you love, you read a book you love, whatever it is, what do you do then to be like, this needs a tea? Like, what is your process to take the flavors from your brain and go to your shelves and be like, tea?
Sure. Well, first of all, it's not generally what people would expect or want immediately. It's what things strike me as inspirational. I do often, people will say, well, like, again, going back to Pride and Prejudice, they'll say, well, you have a tea for Mr. Darcy, but you have a tea for Mama Bennett, not Lizzie. Well, sure. Yeah. Absolutely. That was what struck me in the moment. That's what I wanted to do. That was the thing that was the loudest and the most exciting to me as I was immersed in the material. So it doesn't always line up with what is the most obvious, merch to make for any given fandom, and that's fine. So I just, things jump out and bite me on the tongue, and I say, oh, that's exciting. Ooh, I really like how those things play with each other. Ooh, I like, in this particular scene, I like how this development is really showing itself with this character, and that's interesting to me. And how can I reflect that evolution? And there is no real rhyme or reason to what material jumps out at me and what doesn't. I think early in my career, I was doing a lot of things by request. People would say, I really love this thing. I'd be like, oh my God, me too. Yes, we love this thing. Great. Let's make it happen. And now with over 400 blends, it's gotten to a point where I've had to slow down. I've just had to. There's not time. And especially when it's your livelihood and it's an inventory-based business and you have so many individual items, the sourcing and storage of all of those ingredients, we have thousands of different ingredients that we use. And I can't help myself. Sometimes I'm like, you know what this needs is dried aloe vera. It's like spent 3 years looking for a good source for it. Or recently we had to bring on wakame seaweed flakes for something to taste correct. And so we just keep like, oh, I really need, Schisandra berry for this project. So it just keeps growing and growing. And I've had to slow down and become more selective. And that still works because people come to me now for custom blending so much. It's a lot of what I do. So in addition to the 400-ish teas that are in our everyday collection, there's a secret menu of about 600-700 more that are custom blends that people commission, and then they can order it forever, or they can tell other people about it, and they can order their friends custom teas. So there are so many things going on. So anymore, something has to be really deeply like, I can't get this idea out of my brain mouth, exciting. And so, yeah, I have slowed down. And lately, the last couple of years at the tea house, we've expanded so much. We have had such a growth spurt these last few years. And now I've got a staff of six employees, and they all have beautiful, wonderful ideas. And they're all learning and passionate about the work. And so anymore, maybe half the teas that come out are of my own creation and synesthesia based, and maybe half of them are things that my crew at the shop says, oh, I'm so excited by this idea, and here's what I think would be great. And I'm like, hell yeah, frick yeah, do it. That's delightful. So now we've got a whole line of dinosaur inspired teas that my dude Greg at the shop, one of my oldest employees, not in age, but in time he's worked for me, he just said, hey, I want to make a bunch of teas that are just dinosaur puns, but as tea. And I was like, yes, dude, obviously. So now he's got his pterodactyl one in there. He's got his little Archaeopteryx one. He's got like 7 different dinosaur teas, and all of them have puns for names, and they're freaking delightful. And he's a very gifted blender too. And he also was a professional chef before getting into tea, and he's just so gifted with flavors and palettes and balance. And so, Greg's dinosaur teas are out, and then he made all the Zelda ones. He got so excited about those ideas and had great ideas.
For Krista, if there was Zelda teas,
there are. My dude Greg at the shop, yes, he made a wisdom, a courage, and a power. It's a trio, and they're brilliant. They're wonderful. So now, we've got all these other teas. We did a Miyazaki collection that we released recently that was a collab between everybody at the shop. I said, what is everyone excited about? What Miyazaki pieces are you so connected with and you're so passionate about that you feel inspired to make a tea? So I made a couple for that collection. I think Greg ended up making 3. Our girl Megan at the shop made one. My manager Bree made one. It was her first release with us, and it was so fun to do that all collectively and collaboratively, because it's, you don't have to have neurological superpowers to be able to tap into, here are flavors and textures that seem to really resonate. I feel like you can halfway fake it, what I do, if you're just open to things and you really allow yourself to be raw and connected with your senses and things that you love. So that was a really winding response to that question, but I stand by it.
It's beautiful.
Quality. Yeah. That was a great response.
So exciting.
Also, I am here for the dinosaur tea puns. That is
oh my God,
fantastic.
They're so good. They're so cute. The Brontosaurus that he made, it tastes like, do you remember Land Before Time?
Yeah.
Do you remember how bad you wanted to eat that tree star?
Yes.
So bad.
Yes.
It tastes like that. It tastes like that. I got so excited when I first tried that tea. I was like, shut up. I have been wanting to eat this flavor since I was like knee high to a fucking grasshopper. Oh my God, what a gift. So yeah, the Brontosaurus tastes like the damn tree star in Land Before Time should have. So it's all very exciting.
Now I need to go.
Yeah.
To the tree star.
You need it. Yeah.
Like so bad. Oh wow.
400 blends, and now I have to try them all.
Yeah.
Do you have a specific favorite tea?
That
of
was
your collection?
Really rude of you to ask, Emily, actually. No, I'm just like, it's like such a Sophie's choice, like, how do you choose? So there's about 50 zillion kinds of tea in this world. And I will say that I personally am more drawn to pure teas than blends. That's kind of my life passion. I love blending as an art form and sharing of ideas with other people, but for myself, I mostly do just drink just pure teas. And I'm a big fan of that Golden Monkey that first tea that made me fall in love with tea, I'm still obsessed with it. I mean, like I said, that's half of what's in this Bob Ross tea that I'm drinking right now. But my big love in tea at the moment is an unsmoked lapsang that we get from this delightful small farm in the Fujian province of China. An unsmoked lapsang souchong just kind of started making its way into the United States a few years ago and starting to become popular here, but it's always been a thing in China. Lapsang just means that it's from one specific mountain in China. But when people think lapsang souchong, they think the pine smoke, which is the style of that tea from that region that became popular in the Western world hundreds of years ago. And that's what we think of. But just a pure unsmoked lapsang souchong, it's got these lush, deep, almost like if black plums were dreaming of Tempranillo wine, it would have those notes to it. And the leaf itself is shiny like beetle shells. It's stunning. It's the most beautiful thing in the world. And it just goes smooth and rich and full bodied immediately upon infusion. And it doesn't want to oversteep for a very long time. You have to truly abuse that tea for it to start to go bitter on you. It's so elegant. So that's my love right now.
I feel like I want to drink these teas, but with your voice in the background as like a meditation, explaining it to me as I'm experiencing it, because that was just so beautiful to even listen to.
Thank you.
Wow.
I've been considering doing a series where I just like have a different tea on TikTok every day and just give my tasting notes on it.
Yeah.
Just because they're so pretty. They're so pretty. And I think that there are words that describe how pretty they are that might not occur to somebody, but once it clicks and they hear the word and they taste the flavor and say, oh yes. And I think it can add another layer to the appreciation.
I mean, it's like a tea sommelier, and I would much rather go to you and listen to you talk about tea than go to Napa and have them talk about wine with the same words used over and over and over again.
Yeah. I actually have a trip planned to Seattle in I think May, and I am absolutely going to be getting as near to your shop as possible. Yes. That is amazing. Oh, cool. I'm going to come back with like a suitcase full of tea gift boxes for all of my family for things that absolutely.
Excellent.
Yeah. On that note, do you do online orders? Like, is it just in the shop? How does that all run?
Oh my gosh, we ship worldwide from our website. We've got little tea table friends. In Australia and Scotland and South Africa, everywhere. We ship from FridayTea.com. It's really easy.
Friday Tea.
It's all on there. And then we also have an Etsy shop, which is fine. It's just like another way that it's easy for people to find us. Although I will say that we don't always remember to put all of our products on the Etsy. So you'll get an actual correct full listing if you go on the website.
Nice. FridayTea.com. Love that.
Yeah. Do you do your book club like that too? Is that like a widespread thing? Or
the
is that
book club is purely
shop?
Online. That one is, It's just on Zoom. We ship out the little book box kits with all the cool stuff in them. And that one is just North America though, because shipping all the books and the tea and everything, oh my gosh, internationally is like so much. But yeah, that one is also available online, and in fact, only online. And I think we intend to keep it that way because we've just had so much fun building this widespread community of people who are all over the place. It's like such a lovely group in book club. I mean, we've got now like 30 people that are just in our regular book club circle, and we're all talking about post-pandemic eventually someday, like taking a big group trip for whoever wants to like Charleston to see the tea plantation and hang out and go to the library and all this stuff. So it's very much community oriented. Like everything that we do is all about connecting with humans. So yeah.
That's incredible.
Fantastic. Yeah.
So I do want to throw something out there if you'd be down. We wanted to talk a little bit about the new moon that's going to be happening when this episode releases. And Krista has a bunch of astrology stuff she's going to talk through. I think it would be really interesting if you're good with it after we talk about the new moon briefly. If you wanted to tell us what it tasted like.
Yes.
I think people
would
be
this is the perfect one to do this.
If you don't mind, I don't want to
love it.
Put you on the spot, but okay.
No, into it.
Thank you. Wow. Okay. So this new moon is going to be occurring on March 2nd, and it is a new moon in Pisces. And the cool thing about this moon is right now, and as many people who are just aware of astrology and it's being talked about everywhere, Jupiter is in Pisces, and Jupiter is the traditional ruler of Pisces. Neptune is also in Pisces. It's considered a modern ruler of Pisces, or if you're a traditional astrologer like me, I like to say it really agrees with Pisces. And not only that, but this is a conjunction between the moon, the sun, Jupiter, and then Neptune's a little bit further away. That conjunction is going to be coming at the end of April. But what we're experiencing with this is Pisces is very much that Christos kind of energy. So it's unconscious, it's subconscious. In some ways, it can really generate, because of the way that it can master and house isolation. Sometimes you call it the sign that belongs to the house of undoing, self-undoing, which is a transformational process. So for anybody who's looking at the new moon and beginning a new process, the way you can align with this, especially since it is forming a sextile aspect with Uranus and Taurus, this is alignment with inner peace and your personal ideals and belief system. So it's like a deep calming breath that draws us back into ourselves and into this moment before we get ready for Aries season, which is going to initiate a whole new zodiacal year for us. So one of the things that I like to think about doing during this, as all the planets are interacting by sign in one way or another in this whole chart, this whole picture of the sky, most of the major players, except for Mars, are in Pisces, but Mars and Venus are going to be conjoining with Pluto just a few days later on the 3rd. And that actually brings in this interrelational transformation as well. Pluto being the planet of transformation, death, rebirth, crisis and resolution, that kind of stuff. With Mars and Venus, the lesser benefic and malefic, though there's nothing less about them, they will be together creating this opportunity to say, this is who I am, this is where I'm compromising, this is where I'm not compromising, and this is the part of me that's coming forward from the spirit toward the actual material world. So things that I recommend doing are meditating to really good music, drinking tea that's been designed specifically to help you give good feelings and create those images for you. Hint, hint, anybody. Automatic journaling, daydreaming, take a scented bath, just something that is fully immersive with as many senses as you can into this one focus that draws you into the full experience of being who you are. Because the more you know yourself, the more that you can create this conscious being that you want to be in everyday life. And so the affirmation I came up with is, my peace begins with me. It reminded me a lot, thinking about this, of that Christmas song of let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me, because peace is something that can be derived from what comes of Pisces. The age of Pisces is thought to have begun around the time of Jesus, right? So talking about unconditional love, love your brother, compassion towards others, things like that. Those are the things that will really help you align, and that will kind of help you navigate I am comfortable with myself. I am comfortable being in my own space alone in solitude. And a great idea is to have a really good book nearby, really get into that unconscious flow, that subconscious flow, do some great meditations to just feel luxurious and calm. That full body relaxation is a great idea for this. And if you want more on the actual astrology and all the transits and things going on around it, I do have that in the February forecast video on the Alchemist Inkwell YouTube. But for this new moon in Pisces, it is a very expansive spiritual experience. It's really calling us into an awareness for this, that we can take a new step moving forward and kind of take the hand of our spiritual higher self and just agree that we are going to walk together from now on. And I love that. So that's
really energetically
my
cool.
love
So when I
language.
look at it, it's great.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mm.
So any big flavors? Anything?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Definitely. Okay. So I'm really enjoying this. It feels like such, like, obviously very rich and very crystalline with like a liquid core. Oh, yes, it is. Yes. Also, structurally speaking, it just, yeah, I feel like if I were to put a couple of these concepts next to each other, I think that's the only approach here, right? Because you've got all this like super beautiful, juicy, groovy, crystallized Pisces energy going on over here. And then you have some things that are like almost like electric Scorpio energy, right? I feel like we're bringing Pluto in. to the mix, and then playing with Pluto, with Venus and Mars gives me like juicy citrus Scorpio, like Leo vibes. You
I
know what I
love
mean?
that.
So I'm like, if I were to plate this whole lineup, I would take a really strong sun brewed white tea and I would sweeten it. I think agave is what I'm getting in there. And then you make it into crystals. Like, you know, like if you're making rock candy, but thin and with like almost like a Gushers kind of a center to it. So if you were to bite through the crystals, they'd have this like really intense jelly in the middle that tastes like sunshine, like how you feel when you lay out in the sun for a long time in a good way. And so that is all of those beautiful Pisces things happening all in a lineup right there. And then our Pluto, Mars, Venus action, which is so fun. I feel like that's if you were to take a slice, like a thin cross section of a blood orange and a grapefruit and a Meyer lemon specifically, and kind of lay them in a fan on top of each other. So they sort of meld together in their juices, but their rinds stay so separate and so individual. But then if those rinds were the texture of like fruit leather. So that.
Amazing.
That sounds awesome. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, pretty.
I love that.
Very pretty.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because it's funny when you talk about the certain things, a lot of, I'm sure you are aware of this at in your work that you've grown up with and things, but the planetary correspondences between a lot of herbs and different ingredients that go along with it. A lot of the ones you mentioned, they are very much in alignment with the energy of the planets and things and the signs and all of that. So that was really satisfying to be able to experience and listen to.
I'm glad.
Well, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for bringing all your expertise here with us and talking to us and our audience. I'm so incredibly inspired by you as a person. A lot of people struggle with identity stuff, but you having to go as far as to be like, the way I speak is making me feel not myself, and then changing that is humongous.
Yeah.
So your story is not only really inspiring and magical as all hell, but I love what you've done with your natural superpowers. I think it's incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's an amazing journey. And the fact that you've decided to prioritize your experience and not compromise, but translate is such an amazing epiphany for so many people.
Yeah, it has certainly taken a long time to get there. It's easy to decide that if you're other than, then you should change and you should hide and you should disguise yourself so as not to draw more attention to your otherness. And I've really put a lot of focus, especially in the last decade of my life, in my tea work, which, tea is at its core about connecting people, whether you're connecting with yourself or your surroundings or with other humans. It's a connecting beverage at its core. And that just really speaks to me. I think, why separate when we can connect, and why reinforce other thans when we can be working with compassion and all of that. And so I think a lot of what I'm focused on at this phase of my life is now, I guess, being so out there about my own experience so that other people can see that their other than is not necessarily a liability, and that it can be a beautiful tool for connecting with other people. You can just be yourself, and you can find little beautiful ways that yourself can connect with other people's selves. And you don't have to change. You don't have to hide. You don't have to make yourself fit a cookie cutter, which is good, because those are annoying.
I love that. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. So to everybody listening, just a quick reminder that you can support Friday and all the beautiful things that she does on Friday Teas plural, Friday Tea.
Nope.
Or FridayTea.com. So definitely go for it, because I already know several things I'm going to be looking at.
Fantastic. Yeah. And I do want to let y'all know that we are expanding into a second tea cafe location later
Yay.
this year. That's the hope anyway. We're going to be crowdfunding for that in the spring once we get into our new warehouse and recording studio, because we've got 2 expansion projects going on this year. But in the fall or winter, we are planning to open our little ode to the Jasmine Dragon in Avatar: The Last Airbender. So we are creating for you a very chic, very cozy IRL Jasmine Dragon here in Seattle. So that's a project to keep your eye on our socials about that, because that's something we're very invested in.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to fly out to Tahoe and take a road trip with Emily and go visit your Jasmine Dragon, because we both love Avatar. Talk about high vibe. That is one of our go-to recommendations. So yes, absolutely. Guys, remember we can follow you on TikTok at Friday Afternoon Tea.
Friday Afternoon Tea on TikTok and Twitch, and Friday Tea on everywhere else.
Okay, definitely. So you can stay informed about the Jasmine Dragon. Follow Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you all so much for being here and listening. If you wanted to watch this interview as opposed to just listen to it, you can check us out on YouTube. Obviously, we're on all the platforms. Thank you for being here. We appreciate each and every one of you. And
go make some magic.
That didn't work that time, but that's okay.
Not as good as you. Oh, we try.